It's after midnight, and it's time for conversations about love, family, friends, sex, and life. It's Love and Life with Carol Riddick and Donavan West, only on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media.
Well, hello there, family. Welcome. You are tuned in to another episode of Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. We're at 96.1 FM and 900 AM. But you knew that, didn't you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am your host, Carol Riddick. And my alternating co-host, Donavan West, sends his love, as always, as usual, because that's what we do here at Love and Life. So, here on Love and Life, we discuss everything and anything as it pertains to love and life, but we do so with an honest opinion and without judgment. Our conversation today is about sexual health and living a healthy sexual life. And our guest today will share information and suggestions on how we can make efforts to do so. I like that. I don't know about you. I'm always trying to do better, if you know what I mean. He is the director of the Philadelphia Area Sexual Health Initiative at Public Health Management Corporation, PHMC. He is adjunct faculty in the Graduate School of Social Work at Temple University, TU, is a psychotherapist, and is also a licensed social worker. I don't know when he sleeps or eats, but I am delighted to have him join us today. So please help me welcome Lee Carson. Hey, Lee.
Hey. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for joining us, especially, in this midnight hour. We appreciate you.
Indeed. I'm a night owl. Like the TU, I'm a night owl just like the TU owl, so it's all good.
Well, I went to TU as well, so I can certainly identify and I overstand. But first of all, I want to say, this conversation that we intend to have today, I want our family members to know that you all know I'm very lighthearted, but I am so serious about everything that we intend to talk about today, because I had a conversation with Lee prior to today, and I was explaining, Lee, I said, some of the topics about which you are so well versed are conversations that we just don't typically have in our households, And I think it's so important. So thank you for obliging. Thank you for accommodating. And I'm ready to get into some things. How about you?
All right, I'm ready. Let's go.
So family members, Lee, how we start there? Would you please tell our family members just who you are and from where you come?
Sure. So, I'm actually from Rochester, New York. So that's where I was born and raised until 31. Until I was about 31, I moved here to Philly. So I really wanted to be in a bigger city. I got my graduate degree in social work in Rochester. And a few months after, was here in Philly, and have my only full time job in Philadelphia. Actually, has been at Public Health Management Corporation, where I used to work in the research division. And that was interesting because all the research that we did was often related to African Americans, right? And so
Mm.
as we think about behavioral science research, we didn't do any medical related research, but our behavioral research really was trying to understand some of the sexual health risks for Black MSM, which stands for men who have sex with men. So it's really more of a behavioral category because identity is all over the place as far as how people identify. And oftentimes in public health, what we're interested in is really understanding what are the behavioral patterns to sexual risk. So that's why the term MSM, or men who have sex with men, is used. And
I'm
so,
sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt because you said it so quickly. I missed it twice. What does MSM stand for?
yeah, my apologies.
No, that's quite
Men
okay.
who have sex with men.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah,
Okay.
no problem. Yeah, because other, the listeners may also have some difficulties. I did say that pretty quickly. So moved to Philly, was doing my behavioral science research thing, and then I really was interested in doing therapy, and so I was able to land a therapy gig, and really have worked as a therapist since 2007. So
Mm.
I have quite a few years in the game, and so I've worked with a range of folks, couples. I did a lot of couples work. I love couples work. It's really interesting to really sort of help people work through some of those relationship dynamics and challenges that they're having, but also did a lot of individual work. And then I started teaching. So
Mm.
first at Temple University, which I started there in about 2008 as an adjunct instructor, and then at Community College of Philadelphia in their behavioral health program. So I had been there, started there in like 2011. Yeah, and then just have been kind of hustling ever since and doing a range of things. I've done training, worked for the Ladipo group for a number of years. Time Ladipo and the Ladipo group doing amazing work. Not sure if you're familiar with them, but
No. I want to make sure our family members are familiar as well. So I'm going to ask you, when you are explaining, to explain to us as if we have never heard or are familiar with anything about which you are speaking.
okay. So yeah, so the Depot Group is a Black owned and operated company here that provides quality therapy to Black communities. And so I know oftentimes that there are issues around mental health in our communities
Hmm.
and about
Hmm.
addressing mental health. So it's really great to be able to work with Tanya Ladipo, who's the founder and owner of the company. And at that time, what happened is that while she was doing the therapy thing, also wanted to develop a training department. And so I worked and sort of managed and sort of helped to build the training capacity. So it was great to be in a Black owned and operated company that was doing really amazing work to really help with the mental health and behavioral health needs of African Americans in Philadelphia. And then I came back to PHMC, and I'm now the director of PASHI. So my experience really ranges from public health, social work, therapy, training, and all of those things really inform the work that I do and how I show up in the world. So
Wow.
that's
Mm.
that's who I be.
Yeah, well, that's a whole lot of who you be. Okay. But I love it. I love it. There's so much to break apart in there. Now, Pashi, can you explain to us what that is or what that means?
Yeah, yeah. So PASHI, which is the department that I direct, is called. It stands for the Philadelphia Area Sexual Health Initiative. And so most of what we do presently is adolescent sexual health work. So what that means is that we're really invested in helping young people navigate their sexuality, because as we know, young people in their adolescence are just trying to figure out who they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without the whole sexuality piece, just living life, getting through community violence, all the things, COVID these days. Like there's just so
Mm.
many things that young people are competing with. And young people, when you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, you haven't lived the same life or as much life as someone who's 30, 40, who maybe has a little bit more experience and able to navigate your emotions and those kinds of things. And so part of what we want to do is just to make sure that young people have some of the tools that they need in order to, as they're developing just their own lives separate from their sexuality, that
Mm-hmm.
as they're coming into their sexuality, they also have what they need. So one of the things, and this is my tagline, and hopefully it's appropriate for air, but that one of the things is that we don't want our kids socialized by peers and porn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that peers don't know what they're talking about for the most part, because they're also 13, 14, trying to figure things out.
True.
And pornography is not really what sex looks like mostly. And we also see how women are often treated in porn. And so we don't want young people, young women growing up, or, persons who identify as female growing up, to think like, oh, well, that's what sex is supposed to look like and how it should be treated during sex. And then we also don't want boys to think like, oh, that's what I was supposed to treat a female during sex,
Sure.
that kind of stuff. So, that's a lot of the work that we do as well with Pashi. And then we also work with adults. So we have a training program called Let's Talk Real Talk. That is because what we're finding is that adults really struggle with talking to young people about their sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we try to disrupt through our work is the sort of perspective that parents come from of well, you just better not come home pregnant, or you better not do this, that. The thing is, it leaves no pathway for young people to come to them and ask them about questions, because the parent or the caregiver, whoever that person is that's raising them, isn't leaving an open pathway for that conversation to happen. And so that's a lot of the work that we do in the training program, is helping adults understand that and see how they can be more supportive of young people and be a trusted adult.
You just shared so much information, and I have so many questions.
Mhm.
But the one question I'd like to ask is, um, and I'm saying this with regard to myself as well, because I'm in what I believe to be that demographic that is just so new to the conversation,
Mhm.
um, the binary conversation, I should say, the binary choice conversation. And I want to make sure and be clear that when I am speaking, I am not offending anyone. So this conversation that I'm having with you, I'm letting you know, family members, that I'm asking because I am ignorant to a lot of things with regard to this entire subject matter. So when I ask, please give me a pass. If at any time I say something that that you find unfavorable, because I'm learning and I'm trying to learn and I'm making an effort so that we can all, have clarity on these issues. So I wanted to say that first, but I would like to know. So because I'm in that demographic, as I stated, like, how many adults do you present with questions about how to approach their children about having the binary conversation?
Mhm. So when you say binary, do you mean about gender binary or
Yes,
about?
yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So we find that, and we're still have the program is still ongoing, so we're still training adults. So if folks are interested in this Let's Talk Real Talk program, they can reach out to me about that. But we find, for example, like when we almost every um, so we've trained maybe so you probably had maybe about 50 adults who have come through the program so far. So it's not a ton of people compared to the amount of adults in Philly. That's why
Hmm.
we're looking for additional adults to participate. But um, most of them don't really understand the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity, and that's kind of what you're asking about. When with the binary, and what Carol's referring to, is that we often for many years have seen gender as either male or female, but we
Hmm.
now understand and have understood for some time, but I think now has gained much more precedence in our day to day, of that gender is a spectrum, that not everyone identifies as just a female, as female, or as male. Now, I,
Hmm.
for example, I identify as a cisgender, and what cisgender means is that, so basically we're all assigned a sex at birth. When we
Hmm.
come out of our mothers, of the mother's womb, however we come out, C-section or whatever, the doctor looks at our genitals, and that's how they determine our sex, right?
Sure.
So if you have a penis, they say you have a male or a boy. If you have a vagina, they say you have a female or a girl.
Hmm.
And then, of course, there are some people who are born with intersex conditions. Now, this term, back in the day, which is an offensive term that folks should not use, is hermaphrodite. But some people may be familiar with the old school term. But how we should refer to that today, to someone who has an intersex condition, is intersex. And this is where someone is born with maybe ambiguous genitalia, or maybe they have reproductive organs of both males and females. So,
Hmm.
for example, they may have partially formed testicles, but also have a uterus. A uterus is a female reproductive organ. Testes are a male reproductive organ. So, someone with an intersex condition could be born with some configuration of female and male sexual reproductive organs. So it's a
Okay.
pretty rare condition that is the
Mm.
case. So when you're born, as I said, usually it's like male, female based on genitalia. So for me, when you're how you were assigned at birth, I was assigned male at birth, and how I see myself and live my life is as a man. So that's what the term cisgender means, when those two things align. When those two things don't align is where, for example, if I were assigned, since I was assigned male at birth, but if I lived my life because I felt like in my heart and in my head that I'm actually female, then that's where I might transition and say that I identify as transgender.
Okay.
And so not everyone who, and the term transgender is a huge umbrella term. Sometimes people may identify as non-binary, which means that, I don't fit clearly as in the male side of things. I don't clearly fit how I see myself as female. And so I'm somewhere along that spectrum. And
S-
so, yeah, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Okay. So an individual, first of all, thank you
Hmm.
for uh making it clear to me about interest, well, all of it, because I really did not know. But so the question I have is about a transgender individual.
Hmm.
I thought it pertained to having a procedure, so it does not.
No, yeah, yeah. So then, thank you for asking that question because I think that there are probably a lot of other people who may have that question. So,
Yes.
how a person identifies has nothing to do with surgeries. It's all about how they feel inside their heart and inside their head, right?
Okay.
So,
Oh wow.
some people may choose to have surgeries, but also we must understand that that many of those surgical procedures are really expensive. And so
Mm,
insurance isn't going to cover those things for most people. And so, therefore, a lot of people may not even have the choice, even if they wanted to have a procedure, they might not be able to. Now, what many people may do is what's called hormone replacement therapy,
mm,
where the person may, if I, for example, am transitioning from female to male, I may take testosterone. And so that's
okay.
something uh, someone can access through a physician or a medical facility where the testosterone then on testosterone they may grow facial hair and body hair and those other kinds of things that are
Okay.
that you might see in like a cisgender male. So they would also develop some of those characteristics. Muscle tone might come in a little bit more. Someone who's transitioning from male to female will take estrogen, and
Okay.
so therefore their facial features may soften, there may be more breast tissue that may grow, etc. So those are things that are more accessible to most people if they choose. Now,
Mm,
to be clear, some people may identify as transgender or somewhere on that spectrum and don't do any of those things. They may not go for surgery. They also may not take any kind of hormone replacement therapy. Yet they identify themselves as transgender and may see themselves as the opposite sex or somewhere along that gender spectrum. So it really is up to the individual. And so what I will say often is that it really is about the individual. So there's no one way to say, well, this is what transgender is for all people, right? It's
okay.
really going to be individualized to that person. And if that person is open and feels open to talking about their process, because not everybody does, people don't want to
Yeah.
always be under the microscope about, so tell me about your transition. So
Sure.
we have to be respectful of that boundary. But if they're willing to talk to us about that, then, we can learn what that person's journey is.
So, how does an individual, an intersex individual, identify? How is and ple's
No,
I'm
it's
asking for your patience.
the
How
teacher
is
in
it?
me is here. So
Yeah.
teacher, the instructor, it's like, it's no taking anybody's head off because they said something transgressive or something like that. So it's all good.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure I form my question properly. Listen, family. Well, first of all, family, let you know, you are tuned in to Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media at 96.1 FM and 900 AM. Now, I'm going to let you know, for those of you who are unaware, that you can email us at loveandlife@wordradio.com. That's WURD radio.com, of course. But I'm saying this not so that you can, let me know what I've done incorrectly today, but I'm saying this because I feel like these are the questions that we need to ask. And I'm making every effort to educate myself as well as help you, family members, to gain more knowledge. Because, I mean, listen, They say when you know better, you do better. And that's what I'm trying to do at all times. But on that note, what we're going to do is take a commercial break, and we'll be right back with Lee Carson.
Word on Jobs.
A new year is here, and if you're searching for new career goals or a new job that fits your skill set, visit wordworks.com to view jobs and program opportunities, including Community Relations Coordinator for WHYY, Disability Services Director for NBME, and Policy Director for Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. Visit WordWorks at word.com and find the career opportunity that's right for you. Brought to you by Pico and Livelihood at Word Radio.
Imagine you on a deserted island all by yourself, or even being in a crowd of people yet still feeling alone. That's what being a victim of sexual assault can feel like. Victims of sexual assault are at an increased risk for developing depression, PTSD, substance abuse, eating disorders, and anxiety. Sexual assault can happen to anyone and is any unwanted sexual contact such as unwanted touching, fondling, groping, or even rape. No always means no, so speak up and speak out. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Black Americans have died of COVID-19 at over 2 times the rate of white counterparts. This is due to systemic racism and healthcare disparities. Here are some tips for protecting yourself. Wear a mask covering your mouth and nose. Avoid crowds. Wash your hands with soap and water. Use alcohol-based sanitizers. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Practice social distancing and follow World Health Organization guidelines. Quarantine if you've been exposed to the virus. Self-isolate if you're experiencing symptoms. Seek medical attention if you experience difficulty breathing, a fever, cough, sudden confusion, or pressure in your chest. If you don't have health insurance or a healthcare provider, try contacting your state health department, community health clinics, or local hospitals for testing and treatment. Together, we can stay informed and empowered. This public service announcement is from the National Black Cultural Information Trust.
When I cross the finish line, it's not just me. I succeed because of others. When I was pregnant, I survived because of others. At 32 weeks, I was diagnosed with preeclampsia and had an emergency C-section. Because my doctor took quick action and my husband was there to help me, I'm alive. Too many women die of pregnancy-related complications, and most are preventable. If you or someone you know is pregnant or recently had a baby, learn the warning signs. It could help save her life. Hear her.
For the Indianapolis Colts, becoming a running back was no easy task for me. But it's nothing compared to what my amazing mom faces every day. My mom was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when I was 14 years old. Yet she's always there for me, every step of the way, despite her own battles. And the Muscular Dystrophy Association is there for my mom. At their 150 care centers across the U.S., MDA is the leading organization in research and care for kids and adults with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and related neuromuscular diseases. Their research is helping find cures and save lives. Watching my mom go through her daily struggles and the care she receives from MDA has made me determined to help find a cure for neuromuscular disease. That is why I support MDA, and that's why I'm so grateful to others who do too. Join me and learn more at helpmda.org today.
Hi, I'm Tanya Hopkins, aka The Food Griot, the host of Savory and Sweet, a new show about food, history, and culture. Savory and Sweet is a flavorful exploration of food, marinated in the Black experience, seared with history and braised in culture. Each week, I'll fold in conversations that center food and drink at the intersection of business, health and well-being, entertainment, education, and innovation, while separating the facts from fiction on the sometimes surprising origins of what we eat and drink. So join me, the Food Griot, and special guests for Savory and Sweet, Food, History, and Culture every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. beginning January 2nd, 2022, exclusively on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media.
You're listening to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Hey there, family. Welcome back. You are tuned in to Love and Life, WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. We're at 96.1 SM and 900 AM. And we are joined today by Lee Carson, who is educating me, if no one else, educating me on life as it pertains to sexual health and orientation and so many other things. So, Lee, okay, I have another question for you, and I'm going to try this. I'm going to try to get this out. How does an intersex individual identify if they are born with fully formed genitalia of both
Hmm. Yeah, so to be clear, that it's not fully formed. I think you said fully formed, but so it's
Yes,
partially. So
partially.
yeah, so oftentimes, again, it's a spectrum of what their sexual and reproductive organs might look like, of what their bodies might look like. So
Okay.
there could be someone who is mostly uh, their sexual and reproductive organs are primarily female, but they may have just partially formed ovaries, but everything else is like fully um, female or whatever else. So
Hmm.
there's really no
Ah,
every person's condition is going to be different.
I'm
So
so glad you clarified that because I really I thought there were individuals who well, there were rare cases where there were individuals who were born with fully formed genitalia of both sexes. So thank you for that.
and there's a possibility of that too. Again, it's a major spectrum of as to
Hmm.
what that as to how that intersex conditions are expressed, and so oftentimes, unfortunately, parents and physicians choose for the infant, for that child. So they may say, well, and they may even engage in some reconstructive surgeries. So the
Mm.
crude saying is that it's easier to make a hole than a pole, meaning that they often may um, choose to do reconstructive surgeries or not, but
Mhm,
just don't feel
mhm,
like that person is female.
mhm.
They have no idea. No one knows in infants how they feel in their head and in their heart as far as who they are as a person and what
Sure.
gender or sex they are.
Wow.
So sometimes children are raised as a certain gender,
Mhm.
and then as they get older and come into their own understanding in the world of like how they feel about their gender may be opposite than how they were raised. So we
Right.
find, sometimes that physicians and parents may say, well, I'm going to raise this person as female, or depending on, again, what the genitalia look like, maybe this intersex person has a fully formed penis, even though they may have
Mhm.
ovaries or something. So they're like, well, we're going to socialize this child as a male. And this goes in, to the notion of, so the ideal would be that this child is raised in a gender neutral way, and then they will find their way to their gender, because it can be pretty traumatizing for many people if I don't, first of all, wasn't told at some point that I was born with an intersex condition.
Mhm.
Then I wonder why my body is the way that it is, and I'm being raised as female, but in my head and heart, I feel like a female, but I'm being raised as male. Um, that can cause a lot of
Mm.
confusion and emotional distress for that individual.
Sure, sure.
And we all know that gender is socially constructed. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Mhm,
that
mhm.
it's society who says what boys should do and what girls should do and how boys should dress and how girls should dress and all of those things. And I know that's a really difficult conversation in Black communities because not, sort of saying, oh, you're going to raise your child genderless. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Right,
they have to
right.
be men. They have to be strong. Black men, have to be this, have to be that. So I know that that's a controversial topic in our communities about the social construction of gender and what that means as to how we raise our kids. But
Can you offer some tips to our family members who could with regard to fostering a healthy conversation or healthy communication with their young adults or their children or those for whom they care as it relates to issues of sexuality?
yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love to have this conversation. And
Okay, okay.
so you're right up my alley. So one of the things that's really important is that sexuality these days and how kids identify and see themselves is very different than. So I'm an early '70s baby. I was born in '73. So, I'm 40. Will be 49 this year. And so in our day, like there really was not. My parents never talked to me about any kind of sexuality related stuff at all. As I think that most parents don't or don't feel comfortable doing so. And so I just kind of found my own way, just like a lot of young people do. So I think one of the biggest things is sort of leaving that space open for young people to have the conversation. Actually, parents should start with age appropriate conversations about body parts, about what they are, all those things, right? And then also about the whole good touch, bad touch stuff. But I was listening last night, for example, to your show yesterday.
Okay.
And so, for those of you who hadn't listened to it, the guest had shared about how he took his 5-year-old daughter to school, and there greeting her was another 5-year-old little boy who really, I'm not sure if he really likes her in some kind of like sort of romantic kind of crush way, or if it's just like, oh, you're just like a really good friend, and I really like spending time with you. But nonetheless, he had bought her like 3 balloons and a teddy bear and all of that stuff. And so clearly there's something for that 5-year-old boy at 5 years old already, that there's some kind of attraction he has, even if he doesn't understand it or whatever, to this young girl. And maybe it isn't any kind of romantic as we think about romantic as adults, right? He is only 5 years old. But that's an opportunity even to talk about consent and boundaries, right? With people that young. Like, what if that young lady felt really embarrassed by that and was like, I don't like you like that. You know what I'm saying? And now he's like coming up to her and giving her these balloons and a teddy bear. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, obviously the parent must have bought this stuff for him. So at minimum, maybe the parent could have reached of the young man and said, well, hey, I just want to let you know that, little Johnny, he really wants to buy these balloons and this teddy bear and give it to your daughter. Do you feel comfortable with that? Does she feel comfortable with that? You know what I'm saying? Because we had to talk about consent early, even if it's just about hugging, touching. Just because I say I want to hug you today doesn't mean that I want to hug you tomorrow or for you to touch me in certain ways. And if we start that conversation early, we socialize young people to learn about boundaries, because sometimes we see rape culture, sexual assaults, all of that stuff come from us not at earlier ages, socializing our young people, regardless of how they identify gender-wise, about boundaries, consent, and all that kind of stuff.
Wow. So, okay. So using this scenario of the 5-year-olds, how do you broach that topic? Like, how do you have that conversation with a 5-year-old? Well, in both regards, the recipient and the giver. Like, how do you have those conversations? Like, what does that look like?
So for the young woman, so let's say the parents did have a conversation, which would be ideal in the ideal world. So then the parent of the young man might say, well, so Johnny, I know that you really want to give the balloons and the teddy bear to, little Shayna. However, and that may be fine, but if you should ask her when you all meet and you go to give her these things, you should ask her, do you mind? I really would like to give you this teddy bear and these balloons. Do you mind if I give these things to you? Because I really, think that you're a great person. You're really awesome. And that's why I want to give these to you. Right. So he's sharing the intent of like the gift. So it's not like, because I want something from you, that's why I'm giving this to you, whatever. The intent is just simply, you're awesome. It's Valentine's Day. You're a good friend. And I want to do something special for you. So do you mind if I give you these balloons? So actually literally asking, is it okay for me to give this to you? So that's what the parent of the young boy could socialize him to have that conversation. Because not everyone, just because you get something for someone doesn't mean that they'll accept it or that they want it. So that's what he needs to understand at a young age. For the young woman, the conversation from the father or the parents of the young woman might be, so so and so, if someone may be giving you a gift tomorrow, or maybe you say who it is, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Little Johnny's going to give you a gift tomorrow, and you have the right, if you don't feel comfortable, to say no. I don't feel comfortable accepting that, or however, So I just want you to know that just because someone does something nice for you doesn't mean that you have to accept that. Right. And so therefore now she's empowered to say no, she doesn't feel comfortable with the gift because maybe she don't like him like that. And
Right.
she's like, he get on my nerves because you know how kids are. A lot of times they be like, boy, get on my nerves. He be irking, whatever. Right? Maybe
Right.
that's more of an 80s term, irking. I don't know if kids these days say irking.
I
But
don't know either, but we still say it. So
so those are, I know it sounds like a lot, but if we're going to disrupt some of the issues around consent culture, rape,
Mhm.
boundary, overstepping boundaries, and all of those things, it requires us to show up for young people in a different way and have those kinds of
Wow.
conversations. So that would be my recommendation.
This sounds like a conversation that a lot of adults need to have as well.
Between each other, absolutely. There's
I,
no
I
doubt
mean,
about that. No doubt about that. Like,
you, I remember, growing up, and so the ratio was far more women in my family than men, and the women would always say, my aunts and my grandmother would always say, "Listen, now if somebody offers you something or gives something to you, if you don't have any desire for whatever comes next, if they have an interest or what have you, then you don't accept it." You
mhm,
don't accept it at all. And we were told that at a very young age.
mhm,
And we were, it had to have been kindergarten at the least, but we were told that. And I find that, and I was just having this conversation the other day where someone expressed, well, it wasn't with me, but they were saying, yeah, well, the guy said, well, I gave her this and I gave her that and I gave her this, and that she should at least, he had an expectation that because he was giving things to her that she should respond a certain way. And now I know these two individuals, but she felt that, well, he's my friend. He's helping me out.
mhm,
So there was no communication there. And you're
mhm,
talking about two adults,
mhm, mhm.
so that can be problematic when you don't have those conversations. So I actually understand having it when we're at a very young age, because that helps us to communicate better.
As adults.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of it's like, and maybe your female friend is like, well, I didn't ask for all these things. You know what I mean? Like, if the male is offering all of these things because he thinks it'll be nice, but that's the thing about expectations, is that then
Mhm.
we then expect something versus
Mhm.
doing something out of the kindness of our hearts, so that if there's no reciprocation, if we're really about that other person and helping them, then there's no, we don't have any expectation on the other end of, oh, I'm doing this because I'm hopeful that then, this person will then do something nice for me back or whatever else.
Mhm.
So if we come from a place of pure intention, uh, without expecting something, then, then our relationships can be much better, and then we don't
Mhm.
get
Mhm.
upset and frustrated, that our expectations aren't being met. But if I could go back to, like the discussions about, how parents can talk to the young people. So it's, if you open those doors early with saying, hey, if you have any questions about anything related to, as you begin to find that you're attracted to other people,
Mhm.
any of that, and say other people, not if it's a
Other
boy, to say
people.
if you're attracted to girls, or if it's a girl, if you're attracted to boys, because
Ah.
we don't know what that kid's sexual orientation is or what their
Oh my
attractions
goodness.
might be. So if we come from that place of being very neutral about, that conversation, so we would say, like, whenever you find that you have attractions to other people, or you can even go a little further, and this lets them know even more that you're a potential ally. If you say, those people might be of the same gender as you, they might be of the opposite gender as you, but, like, whenever you find yourself attracted to people, feel free to talk to me about that. You know
Oh
what I'm
my
saying?
goodness.
But definitely when it gets to the point, and I don't know, Carol, I think it's the hormones in the food, but I did not see 10-year-olds developing in the way that I did back in the 80s, like I see now. You know what I'm saying? Like there's 10-year-olds who are growing breasts, who are, you know,
fully developed.
Puberty. And so whenever you see that the child has started puberty, time for the conversations, because that means hormones are going. That means that they may be beginning to have thoughts of sex and all of those things.
Thoughts, desires, all kinds of things. I say started even earlier as a preventive measure, and to inform them. The family, if you're just joining us, you're tuned in to Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. We are going to take a break. We're going to come back and continue our conversation with Lee Carson. Stay with us because we'll be right back.
What's up, y'all? It's Janae Latrice and Kayla J. Be sure to tune in Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m. for Crosswords, sharing conversations across generations, right here on WURD. Progressive Black Talk Media. We'll see you there.
I remember this one moment. I ran to kind of the water edge, and my mom said something along the lines of like, now it's your turn. Take that first step. When I became a mom myself, I feel like my whole world changed. There's some light within her that makes me continue to do the climate science work that I do. You don't have to be a climate scientist to want to protect the earth. As moms, we care about our children and the environment they grow up in. And for Mia, I want you to know that I worked really hard to be a part of the change and to make it a better place for you.
Email from school about the incident today.
Scary.
Tell me about it. Did you have any idea that was going on?
None. I mean, you saw Derek at the game last night too. Did you have a clue?
No, but teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do. Kids hear first about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
It can be hard to tell sometimes, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, bullying, violence, anything, you need to tell an adult. Mom or me, a teacher, coach, school counselor, someone you know and trust.
Dad, no kid is gonna tell an adult about that kind of stuff.
I get it, but if we don't know, we can't help. Speaking up about a problem, that's what helping a friend is all about.
You know, a lot of people say when you're going somewhere, you don't want to look back. But I beg to differ. For her to see her father celebrate his graduation, it's the best feeling in the world. I can't lie and say it was easy. But sometimes you just have to stop everything and take it in. I looked at everything in a different light. I realized it started with me going back and getting my high school diploma.
We're often influenced by what we see or hear on social media. Beware of disinformation campaigns targeting Black communities by using cultural issues to incite divisions, spread false information, and negatively influence public opinions. We're in this together, and together we can stay informed and empowered. Learn more at nbcit.org. This public service announcement is from the National Black Cultural Information Trust.
I'll be here to hear what's on your mind. Take this time to talk and get it right. You know I'll be there all your life. When you need me, I'll be by your side. By your side. And every day is a different day. Everything is an everything. Even when you think things can never ever be the same. Don't be scared of the world, I'll be here to stay. By your side. Even when your heart ain't listening, or your mind takes you a different way, towards a different path. All you gotta do is sitting there. When you need me, I'll be by your side.
When the adults in a child's life talk early and often about the dangers of underage drinking, the message gets stronger every time.
I'll be by your side.
Talk. They hear you.
Hey, still shopping for the new year? Or did you receive a gift card for the holidays? Either way, Word Radio's got you covered. Visit wordradio.com and shop at the Word Virtual Marketplace. You can support local, small, Black-owned businesses through the marketplace and shop today. Visit wordradio.com/marketplace or wordworks.com/marketplace. You're listening to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Well, hey there, family. Welcome back. You are tuned in to Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. We're at 96.1 FM and 900 AM. I would be totally and completely remiss if I did not share some love or send some love to our family members on our socials. We know you are there, and we appreciate you hanging out with us, especially in the midnight hour. So hey y'all, how you doing? We hope you're doing well, and we hope you are enjoying the conversation too. We've been talking with Lee Carson, who has been sharing so much information, and I don't know about you, but I am eternally grateful for the education I am receiving because I feel a little better equipped. Thank you so much for that. But I'd like to continue the conversation and talk about some other things as well that I feel could be helpful to all of us, especially me. So if you wouldn't mind, could we transition into the conversation about sexual orientation and gender identity and the issues around homo and trans negativity in the African American community? I know that's one of your specialties, so I really would like for our family members to be educated and well-versed.
Yeah, sounds good. So one of the things I'll say related to sexual orientation is for people to think about it this way, because sometimes people will say that it's a choice. So, for example, I identify as a Black gay man. Intersectionally, I don't say that as in like, I say Black first, I'll say, because anyone who looks at me will see I'm Black before they figure out that I'm gay or might have some suspicion or whatever else. And, we know the assaults on Blackness in this country right now. Not to say that there's not assaults on homosexuality as well, but again, how I show up in the world and how people perceive me as Black first. Anyway, so when we think about sexual orientation, if we think, particularly I encourage people who identify as heterosexual to think about their sexual orientation, because it's not a choice, right? So if you think about, you're kind of walking down, and this is the way I describe it, you're kind of walking down the road of life one day, and there's no sign that you come to that says if you're straight, go this way, if you're gay, go this way, if you're bisexual, then I always joke, go both ways, right? So there's no sign that says that. None of us makes a choice. Sure. At some point, you just know that you're attracted to other people, and sometimes for some people, you're attracted to people of the same sex. For some people, you're attracted to people of the opposite sex. Some people are attracted to people of both sexes, or people anywhere along that gender spectrum. So heterosexual. So I encourage heterosexual folks to think. Pretty sure that no one who identifies as heterosexual feels that they made a choice to be heterosexual. So it's no different for people who identify as gay or bisexual. So that's one of the ways that I encourage people to think about sexual orientation and to try to help people move away from seeing it as a choice that someone makes. Now, the only choice that we make is to act upon our sexuality, upon our sexual orientation. So nuns, for example, don't, right? They don't date,
Right.
they don't act upon. So that's a choice that they've made, is that they're not going to. So we all essentially have a choice not to act upon our sexual orientation.
Sure.
But the majority of us do. So that's what makes it difficult when there's the experiences of like homophobia, right? Or transphobia or negativity, as I like to say, because it's not that, because phobia is like a fear. And most people don't see themselves as afraid of gay people or trans people. So it really is more of like a homo or trans negativity, this sort of disposition that some people have about negative attitudes and perceptions about people who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, and or transgender. And it's a real struggle for me as a Black gay man, because you know, I don't walk around every day, all day, being like, "Yeah, I'm gay." Like, I am gay. Like,
right.
I'm showing up in the world like just like heterosexual people aren't walking around the world like I'm hetero. Like,
right.
You know, where it's really no different. Like, I show up in the world, I get up, I do my best to make the world a better place than when I left it. Then, you know, a better place from beginning to the end of the day. Whether that's through my teaching with my students, or whether, you know, that was in my therapeutic practice, if it's talking with my 7 nieces or nephews, you know, I got a whole thing off on people, you know, supporting them, supporting family. You know, I've been the person who's like the convener of our family during these COVID times, because we normally have family reunions. We haven't had them physically the past couple of years, but I've been the one to pull family together. Let's get on Zoom, y'all, and let's stay connected. And, you know, all of that stuff. It has nothing, you know, so I think that what I'm really encouraging folks to see is that we show up as people just like someone who's heterosexual does, and that given the challenges that we have with health disparities among African Americans, regardless of sexual orientation, regarding the challenges that we see, for example, in Philadelphia with violence, the impact of COVID-19, the impact of racism, we can't afford to splinter within our communities, from my perspective, right? And so all of us are in this boat together, and that we want to see, I think most of us on this Black History Month, you know, want to see Black liberation.
Yes.
You know, we want to see people winning in all areas. And so we can't do that if we are in a place of splintering off based on something like sexual orientation or gender identity. You know what I'm saying? And so even if, and this is my perspective, because there are things that happen out here in the world that I don't agree with, but if it's not something that is truly damaging to me or mine, then I gotta let it ride.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so even if someone does not agree with homosexuality, bisexuality, you know, someone who identifies as transgender, we can still respect people. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to understand everything. But
at its core,
we should do is just respect other people if they're not disrespecting us.
I want to stop you right there. I want to not to discontinue the conversation, but because we're about to go to a commercial break, I want to make our family members aware that we are talking with Lee Carson, and he is helping me just to get, you know, a better understanding of so many things. And for that, I thank you tremendously. But family, stay with us, because at the top of the next hour, we're going to continue this conversation, but then get into some other things that I feel might be helpful to all of us as well. We'll be right back.
Stand with WURD Radio, Pennsylvania's only Black-owned talk radio station. Join the movement to keep the conversations going and amplify the voice of the Black community. Show your support. Start or renew your 4WURD membership today at WURDradio.com or call 215-425-7875.
You know, a lot of people say when you're going somewhere, you don't want to look back. But I beg to differ. For her to see her father celebrate his graduation, it's the best feeling in the world. I can't lie and say it was easy. But sometimes you just have to stop everything and take it in. I looked at everything in a different light. I realized it started with me going back and get my high school diploma.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made her college years happen. Opening that education savings account when she was little. Spearheading a campus tour. And another, and another, and another, and another. Bam! Deciphering financial aid. She was like, what? Now she's like, you aced planning for college. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
I'm Naheem Hines, professional football player for the Indianapolis Colts. Becoming a running back was no easy task for me, but it's nothing compared to what my amazing mom faces every day. My mom was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when I was 14 years old, yet she's always there for me, every step of the way, despite her own battles. And the Muscular Dystrophy Association is there for my mom. At their 150 care centers across the U.S., MDA is the leading organization in research and care for kids and adults with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and related neuromuscular diseases. Their research is helping find cures and save lives. Watching my mom go through her daily struggles and the care she receives from MDA has made me determined to help find a cure for neuromuscular disease. That is why I support MDA, and that's why I'm so grateful to others who do too. Join me and learn more at helpmda.org today.
I remember this one moment. I ran to kind of the water edge, and my mom said something along the lines of like, now it's your turn. Take that first step. When I became a mom myself, I feel like my whole world changed. There's some light within her that makes me continue to do the climate science work that I do. You don't have to be a climate scientist to want to protect the earth. As moms, we care about our children and the environment they grow up in. And for Mia, I want you to know that I worked really hard to be a part of the change and to make it a better place for you.
Imagine you on a deserted island all by yourself, or even being in a crowd of people yet still feeling alone. That's what being a victim of sexual assault can feel like. Victims of sexual assault are at an increased risk for developing depression, PTSD, substance abuse, eating disorders, and anxiety. Sexual assault can happen to anyone and is any unwanted sexual contact such as unwanted touching, fondling, groping, or even rape. No always means no, so speak up and speak out. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media. Lifting every voice
till earth and heaven ring.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, Philadelphia.
Black Talk Media.
Hey there, family. Welcome back. We are at the top of this second hour of Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. We're at 96.1 FM and 900 AM. We are talking with none other than Lee Carson. He is the director of the Philadelphia Area Sexual Health Initiative at Public Health Management Corporation, aka PHMC. He is adjunct faculty in the Graduate School of Social Work at Temple University, is a psychotherapist, and is also a licensed social worker. I had to say also because I don't know where he fits it all in. But in any event, he has been educating me for the last hour, and he will continue to do so because I have more questions so that I can do better and am better versed in certain areas and with regard to different aspects of sexual health and living a healthy sexual life. And well, so many things under that umbrella, but I'm going to leave it there. Before the break, I'd ask Lee if we could begin the conversation about sexual orientation and gender identity, and if we could also discuss, the issues around homo and trans negativity in Black communities. And Lee, I want to thank you again because you just been dropping all kinds of pearls and nuggets for me to put in my back pocket. But thank you for making it clear to me about the term homophobia because you are so right. You're so right. So right. I love the addition or the substitution of negativity as opposed to phobia. So I wanted to repeat that for our family members who just tuned in because I think it is so important. As a matter of fact, I think I was disjointed when I just said it. So if you could make that distinction again, I would appreciate that.
Okay. Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so I was saying that oftentimes we use the term homophobia, but phobia means fear, or like an irrational fear. And oftentimes it's not that folks fear or are afraid of gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender people. It's more that there's negative attitudes and perceptions that they have about us and therefore treat LGBT folks in in a negative way. And so that's why the distinction between homophobia and transphobia and homo negativity or trans negativity.
So, and this, I'm going to stop saying that, I'm ignorant because that we are all well versed on that by now because I've said it about 3 times. But I would like to know how many ways are there to identify with regard to sexual orientation?
So there's a lot.
Okay.
So obviously, folks know the main categories of like lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. But there are, and so I'm going to be straight up with you.
Okay.
There are some that, because the language is ever evolving, that I'm not even on top of all of them because, what these young people out here doing these days, it's a little hard to keep up on all the terminology. So a few additions that I'll give to folks are asexuality. So one of the things that people don't understand about asexuality, and I didn't, I got really schooled by a client that I had who identified as asexual, because oftentimes people think of someone who's asexual as just not having any kind of sexual feelings. But actually, asexuality is a spectrum also, in that there are some people who are asexual who don't have any sexual or romantic attractions to other people. But there are also, or at all, I should say, at all, not even for themselves or towards anyone or whatever. Then on the other spectrum, the other end, there are people who are asexual, but they do have sexual feelings. It just may be that they may engage in self gratification. So the main hallmark of asexuality is that people who identify as asexual don't necessarily have attractions to other people. That doesn't mean that they don't have that they don't feel that they don't have a sex drive. That's what I'm trying to say. They may have a sex drive, but they may be fine with just self gratification or those kinds of things, self stimulation, and not necessarily having sex with another person. Right. So there are some people who may identify their sexuality as I'm asexual. So I'm not necessarily interested in dating someone else, although some asexuals will date other people and may have sex with other people. It's just that that's not their main interest usually, right?
Okay.
So then, go ahead. Go ahead.
And I was going to ask another question but okay. But were you going to offer more on that?
Yeah, so just one
Okay.
other sexual orientation that some people identify as, which is it just left my
Well,
head. I'm gonna have to
well,
come
I'll
back.
ask you my question. Maybe
Yeah.
it'll jog your memory. So, two ways of identifying with which I've become familiar are non-binary and pansexual.
Yeah, hit it. Pansexual. That's
Oh,
what
okay. Okay. I've heard, but thank
hit
you.
it.
I'm so
Yeah,
glad
hit it.
because I have what?
Yeah. I don't know why it went out of my head for a moment. And Janelle Monáe, I think many of us love Janelle Monáe, and she came out as identifying as like pansexual maybe a few years ago.
So what?
Yeah.
What does it mean? What does it mean?
So think of pansexuality in this way:
Okay.
that it is about the package. It's about the inside and not the packaging, right? So many
Okay.
of us are attracted to maybe, let's just say like a woman, right? A woman may say, "Oh, I'm really attracted to a man who has like masculinity, facial hair, a Sunni beard, whatever, right? Like there may be certain physical characteristics that you're looking for, you find yourself attracted to.
Okay.
Well, someone who identifies as pansexual really is attracted to the inside of the person. So the outside doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the person is sort of female presenting. It doesn't matter if that person is masculine presenting. So they're attracted potentially to the full spectrum of gender expression and identity. But what they're most attracted to is the person and the connection that they have to that person. Right.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's why I say it's not about the packaging on the outside, it's about the inside and the connection that they have to that person.
So those individuals don't have a preference as to how they present outwardly. Like so she wouldn't have she oh is it okay, now there's another
Yeah,
question.
no, so pansexuality is about sexual orientation, and I may not have done this well earlier. So there's sexual orientation, there's gender identity. So sexual orientation is more about who you're attracted to, the type of person. So gay, like me identifying as gay, like I'm attracted to other men, male identifying people. Someone who identifies as lesbian is primarily attracted to other female people. Someone who's bisexual, of course, is attracted. Go ahead.
Can I interrupt one moment? So, and just in making the distinction, so if we're saying a gay male is an individual that identifies as a male but is attracted to men,
Correct.
and same, okay, and same with, and that was where I was getting tripped up. So, and saying lesbian is an individual who identifies as a female attracted to other females. So, with regard to an individual who is pansexual, is there a preference as to how they identify? I get that sexual orientation is the entire spectrum, but this individual does not have a preference with regard to how they identify, or is it fluid? Do they identify,
So
at times, how?
yeah.
I don't.
So think of it. So pansexuality is just another sexual orientation. So the
Okay.
person could also identify as transgender. They could identify as male, female. They could identify anyway. What makes them pansexual is who they're attracted to.
Two.
They're attracted to the
Oh my
inside of the
goodness.
person and the
Right.
connection to the person, but not necessarily how they look on the outside.
Now
So
I've got it.
yeah, so it's more about their pansexuality is more about who they're attracted to, not who they are.
Who they are. Right. Okay. That
But
was and
they're
that was
attracted to.
I'm so sorry. That was the challenge for me in understanding because, I know someone who explained to me that they are pansexual, but I was confused because I know someone else who is non-binary, and I just did not have the opportunity to, delve deeper into the conversation. So non-binary is with regard to identification and not sexual orientation, not sexual preference.
That's correct. So
Oh my
sexual
goodness.
orientation is about who you're attracted to.
Two. Right.
Yeah, so that's what sexual orientation is, right? So who I am and then who who I'm attracted to. Now, gender identity, like non-binary, is about gender identity and whether or not I identify somewhere along the male-female spectrum. Although there are some people who identify as agender, which means that they don't identify with any gender at all. So very few people, that's probably a very small proportion of people, but there are some people who don't even identify themselves anywhere on that spectrum either, and those would be agender, agender, like agender.
Agender.
So,
Okay.
those are the, some of the different kind of like gender identities as well as sexual orientations that people identify with.
So an agender / non-binary individual doesn't have a pronoun. Is that correct?
So someone who identifies as agender with no gender, so they may not identify with any pronoun, and pronouns are typically like he, him, she, her, they, them, are what are called gender neutral pronouns. So a person may identify, someone who is agender just may say, just call me by my name. Right. So you're just always like, instead of saying, hey, look at her over there, you would say, hey, look at Carol. Look at Carol over there. You just will use their name and not a pronoun. Now, someone who's non-binary may identify, for example, with a gender-neutral pronoun, such as they, them, or something like that. But again, that's why it's key, ideally, is when you meet someone new, you can just say in your introduction, like, hey, I'm Lee Carson, and I use he, him pronouns. What's your name and what pronouns do you use? And, that kind of thing, just so that you're not misgendering the person or using the wrong pronouns. In your intros, you just share your pronouns and ask them what theirs are. And people often are not offended by that because they see that as like, okay, they're trying to make sure that they're respecting me.
Right.
You can't always tell by looking at someone what pronouns they might use.
Absolutely.
So
I'm trying. I just family. Oh my goodness. If you are just joining us, you're tuned in to Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. We're at 96.1 FM and 900 AM, and we are talking with Lee Carson, who's been providing the education of life for me, if I might say, because I feel a little better about some of the conversations I will have going forward, because I was really confused about some things. But I want to, because I know we've got some time and not a whole lot of time, so I want to shift our conversation to some other areas. Lee, I know, well, with regard to another area of your specialty. And so I'm going to ask you if we can talk about HIV and some STIs, and if you could suggest or provide some methods to reduce the risk of transmission.
Sure. So I guess we can start with HIV because I think that's the one that so many people worry the most about.
Absolutely.
So HIV, which stands for human immunodeficiency virus, and which can progress to AIDS, which is acquired immune deficiency syndrome potentially. But there's lots of people, because we have such great treatment now for those who access treatment, that many people don't progress to AIDS. And typically how that's defined going from HIV to AIDS is if you have a T cell count of less than 200. If it drops below 200, then you often are diagnosed with AIDS. And that means that your body could potentially acquire an opportunistic infection. So let me explain.
Okay.
T cells, so all of our body has an immune system. And part of that immune system are called T cells, or white blood cells. And those are the part of the body's defense mechanism that whenever they detect an infection, they go to fight it, right? So they're like the body's army. So with HIV, it attacks those white blood cells. And so without treatment, that it is the potential that it will kill off enough of your white blood cells that your immune system gets so weak that even something like the common cold is a viral infection.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, and there really are no treatments, or very few viral infections are curable. They're mostly only treatable. We only treat the symptoms of
Right.
viral infections most often. So in that instance, like I could get a common cold, a person who has less than 200 T cells could get a common cold and could die from that potentially. So that's why treatment is important, and understanding what your status is really important. So I'm trying to think where to go from here. So in Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
there's about, and I was looking up statistics last night just to make sure I was on the most recent stats. Related to HIV, that about 11.5% is estimated that 11.5% of people in Philadelphia do not know that they have HIV.
Oh, wow.
Now, the problem with that is that particularly what we call acute infection, which is when the person first gets diagnosed with HIV or first contracts HIV, not diagnosed, when they
Okay.
first contract it, right? So the HIV is in their body. They've gotten it somehow through sex or through needle sharing. And it, because the immune system has no response to it yet, it takes a while for the body to develop an immune response. So
Mm-hmm.
the virus is replicating like crazy in the body. There's a lot of the virus in your transmissible fluids, which for HIV, transmissible fluids are blood, semen, vaginal secretions, and breast milk. So
Oh.
the most common transmissions obviously are through the exchange of vaginal secretions and semen.
Okay.
Some are through injection drug use, because if you inject a needle into your body, into your vein, it's going to have some blood on it.
Sure.
Vein injected, so that's how that typically works, through injection drug use. So if I don't know that I have HIV and I'm having multiple sexual partners, then I could be spreading that HIV to lots of partners. Now, the way that HIV is spread in part is through the mucous membranes. I know this is a kind of like a lot like science class, and the good thing is that this is on video, so people can rewind it if they need to. Say that one more again.
Yeah.
So basically, the pink parts, the mucous membranes, we can think of as the pink parts. So the inside of the mouth, the vagina, the rectum, the urethra, which is where the penis, where pee comes from and ejaculation comes from, that tubing there, the urethra, is also susceptible to many STIs. And so those are the places where STIs most often get into the body, also through the eyes. So the eyelids and the eyes are also made of mucous membranes. So
Through the eyes?
yeah, oh yeah. So that's why a person can contract, for example, chlamydia or gonorrhea in the eye. So if someone ejaculates on the face, it gets in the eye. And if that semen has gonorrhea or chlamydia in it, the person could get infection through that mechanism.
Understood.
So those are all the things that are, kind of important for people to know as they think about the sexual practices that they engage in and what their risk could be. And so this is why for receptive partners, right? So in this instance, vaginal sex or receptive anal sex, that creates a greater route of transmission for HIV, because all of that area inside the vagina, inside the rectum, is potentially susceptible to HIV. So if there is any kind of abrasion or tearing of the lining in there, and that means that white blood cells are there, because white blood cells come to a point of infection. If there's any kind of even if you bite the inside of your jaw, well, and it hurts because you broke the skin, well, the white blood cells are going to come there because they're going to make sure we don't want anything to get in here. They're the body's defense. But the sad thing is that HIV attaches those white blood cells. So if there's any kind of problems in the vagina, in the lining of the vagina, in the rectum, that kind of thing, that HIV infection, if the person comes into contact with HIV, it makes transmission very possible. So I know that's a lot, to kind of take in. And so for men, or for people with penises, it's a little more difficult to contract HIV that way because the penis is used to pushing things out,
Right.
not taking things in. And plus, it's just like this little hole to get in there.
Sure.
So that's why for the insertive partner, right, typically the person with the penis, it's more difficult to contract HIV via that behavior because of that. But the receptive partner, either vaginally or rectally, anally, are more susceptible potentially. But the good thing is that, and what the efforts are now is about really testing as many people as possible so that everyone knows the status, and for anyone who is positive to try to get them into treatment. So we want to detect HIV as early as possible.
Right.
And that way, if the person is positive, they can then hopefully make a decision that they're going to hold off on having sex with someone until they get in treatment, or just use a condom, because if condoms are super effective at preventing the transmission of HIV and any fluid-based, sexually transmitted infection.
That way, I'm going to stop you right there. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. First of all, thank you. Family members, you're tuned in to Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. Stay with us because we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Tanya Hopkins, aka The Food Griot, the host of Savory and Sweet, a new show about food, history, and culture. Savory and Sweet is a flavorful exploration of food, marinated in the Black experience, seared with history and braised in culture. Each week, I'll fold in conversations that center food and drink at the intersection of business, health and well-being, entertainment, education, and innovation, while separating the facts from fiction on the sometimes surprising origins of what we eat and drink. So join me, the Food Griot, and special guests for Savory and Sweet, Food, History, and Culture every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. exclusively on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media.
What do an aerospace engineer, cancer immunologist, and bat scientist all have in common? We all have cool jobs in STEM fields. Whether it's building robots or learning to code, girls everywhere are finding their passion for science, technology, engineering, and math through positive role models and mentors. So dare to dive in, get connected, and explore. You never know what your future may hold. Learn more about these and even more cool jobs at shecanstem.com.
I'll be here to hear what's on your mind. Take this time to talk and get it right. You know I'll be there all your life. When you need me, I'll be by your side. By your side. And every day is a different day. Everything is an everything. Even when you think things will never ever be the same. Don't be scared of the world, I'll be here to stay. By your side. Even when your heart ain't listening, or your mind takes you a different way, towards a different path. All you gotta do is sit and ask. When you need me, I'll be by your side.
When the adults in a child's life talk early and often about the dangers of underage drinking, the message gets stronger every time.
I'll be by your side.
Talk. They hear you.
Black Americans have died of COVID-19 at over 2 times the rate of white counterparts. This is due to systemic racism and healthcare disparities. Here are some tips for protecting yourself. Wear a mask covering your mouth and nose. Avoid crowds. Wash your hands with soap and water. Use alcohol-based sanitizers. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Practice social distancing and follow World Health Organization guidelines. Quarantine if you've been exposed to the virus. Self-isolate if you're experiencing symptoms. Seek medical attention if you experience difficulty breathing, a fever, cough, sudden confusion, or pressure in your chest. If you don't have health insurance or a healthcare provider, try contacting your state health department, community health clinics, or local hospitals for testing and treatment. Together, we can stay informed and empowered. This public service announcement is from the National Black Cultural Information Trust.
When I cross the finish line, it's not just me. I succeed because of others. When I was pregnant, I survived because of others. At 32 weeks, I was diagnosed with preeclampsia and had an emergency C-section. Because my doctor took quick action and my husband was there to help me, I'm alive. Too many women die of pregnancy-related complications, and most are preventable. If you or someone you know is pregnant or recently had a baby, learn the warning signs. It could help save her life. Hear her.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made her college years happen. Opening that education savings account when she was little. Spearheading a campus tour. And another, and another, and another, and another. Bam! Deciphering financial aid. She was like, what? Now she's like, you aced planning for college. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Hey there, family. Welcome back. And for those of you who are just joining us, you are tuned in to Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. We're at 96.1 FM and 900 AM. I want to remind you all, because I did say so in the first hour of the show, that you can always feel free to email us. We welcome your comments, your questions, your suggestions for topics, and we even welcome your hellos. We appreciate that. We appreciate all the love. And you can do so by emailing us at loveandlife@wurdradio.com. That's love and life at wordradio.com. So, oh my goodness, we've just talked about so many things, but I want to continue the conversation that we just started before the break, and that was about HIV and STIs. And I had asked Lee Carson, our guest tonight, to share with us some methods or suggestions to reduce the risk of transmission. And I interrupted him so rudely because we had to go to a commercial break. So I'm going to ask him to continue.
Absolutely. So I think some of the main things to think about that, really encourage folks to think about is that, there are different categories of STIs. And so there are viral STIs, which include, like HIV is one of the big ones. Herpes is one, genital warts, etc. And so HIV, the best way to prevent HIV transmission is having a partner wear a condom. Or there's also a female condom. So sometimes guys don't want to wear condoms. They may act like, I can't fit in it, all that kind of stuff, right? But the reality is that condoms can accommodate quite a bit. There are different size condoms that people can wear, that men can wear. But then also there's a thing called a female condom also. And so that means that that's something that can be inserted in the vagina. It probably doesn't work quite as well inside of a rectum, but inside of a vagina it can be inserted, and it can be inserted early, like up to 8 hours or so before a sexual encounter, so that you don't have to necessarily go insert it. You do all those things in the moment, like potentially if you think that you might be hooking up later or something like that, you might be like, okay, well, I'm gonna slip it in, and if something happens, it happens, and at least it's there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So even if the male doesn't want to wear a condom, that is something. And this is, of course, I'm talking via heterosexual sex. Like if you're going to engage, or via vaginal sex, I should say. But condoms are the big way. Now, again, testing and getting treated. So testing on a regular basis. So say a person is sexually active, right? And they may have multiple partners. So meaning that they're having sex with more than one person over a period of time. one of the things that they might want to consider is being tested for HIV and STIs every 3 months or so, right? Just to be on the safe side, to know what's going on and
Sure.
all of that. Because the main sign of an STI is that there isn't one, right? So you not only have any kind of symptoms at all. So you may not know that you have gonorrhea, chlamydia, any of those things without actually testing. So, certainly, as I mentioned, there's HIV. So with genital warts, for example, just coming into contact with them, that could create transmission. So that's the thing with STIs, is not all of them are fluid based.
Well, with I'm sorry, so many questions. With genital warts, are they? Can you get rid of them? How does that?
Yeah. So with those, that you can have surgeries to have them removed. So
Oh,
it is
okay.
possible. So if you have genital warts, there is a surgery that can be done to remove the genital warts.
Okay.
But with genital warts, because it's a viral infection, that you're treating the symptoms, but the
Not.
virus may still be in your body, and the warts could come back, maybe in a different place or something like that. So genital
Oh,
warts, same thing with herpes, because herpes is a viral infection as well. So
okay.
herpes, could, and sometimes it goes into remission for years and years and years, and then it may express itself again. So there's really no rhyme or reason as to when it might come and go.
Right. Right.
It's just a matter of like being attentive to your body, because when, for example, you're what they call shedding, where the virus is in your system and may cause like a herpes sore,
Mhm.
then at that point you would be infectious. So if someone comes into contact with that, then you could pass it on to them. So that's the importance of, sort of, at least to the external parts, because you can't see
Sure.
inside the vagina, you can't see inside the rectum. So you don't
Mm.
always know what might be going on in there, but sometimes it can be a feeling that you have, or you might feel like, oh, something feels uncomfortable or a little different, in my, in my
Mhm.
rectum or my vagina or whatever else. And so you want to just be attentive to that.
Sure.
So then there are some STIs that are fluid based, and those are like chlamydia, gonorrhea. That as long as you don't come into contact with the fluids, then they won't be transmitted. So that's where condoms can be really
Mm.
helpful with avoiding the transmission of those kinds of conditions. But note that you can get gonorrhea and chlamydia not only in your vagina, but also in the rectum, also in the eyes, also in the mouth, the throat. So
Right. No.
this is the importance of when you go to get STI testing and
Mhm.
HIV testing. You should do them all at the same time, ideally.
Okay.
HIV test, you could get your results, your rapid test results, within like 5 minutes. So it's a super quick process. It depends on where you go. So where I
Mhm.
often encourage people that has some of the rapid test technology, and you can get your results pretty quickly, is Health Center One, which is the one that is now located at Broad and Passyunk in South Philly.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Okay.
so that one, it used to be at Broad and Lombard, but they moved a few years ago down to Broad and Passyunk. And
Mhm.
so that is the STI clinic for the city, essentially. So most of what they do is the detection and treatment of sexually transmitted infections. So that's
Okay.
probably one of the most ideal places to go. People can go to your own primary care physician, but I find that primary care physicians, because they don't do a lot of HIV testing and all of that, they might say, well, we can get you the results in 72 hours. Like, what?
Right.
I go and get it in 5 minutes. So that's the importance of, and there's a number of other places like Babashi, other sort of public facing organizations that,
Okay.
can do HIV testing. So at any rate, so it's important to get tested. Not only like if you've had oral sex, then you
Mhm.
want to get what is called pharyngeal testing. So it's just a little thin swab that you stick in sort of to the back of your throat, and you just spin it around a little bit just to get a culture there, and then
Ah.
that allows them to see whether or not like gonorrhea or chlamydia is there, because it won't show up in a urine test. Now you can take a urine
Mm.
test to see if gonorrhea or chlamydia is in that region, like in your urine, but it won't pick it up if it's in your throat. So that's why it's important if you also have oral sex
Mm-hmm.
to also consider the pharyngeal testing. Similarly, if
What?
you have had anal sex, to also
Right.
use a rectal swab that you can use, and you would want to test in that region as well.
So for females, if we've had for those identifying as female, those with vaginas,
Yes,
I
very
should
good.
say individuals with vaginas.
Very good.
Okay.
Excellent.
So, thank you, I'm learning. So we should be tested. We should be swabbed vaginally and orally. Is that the suggestion?
That is correct.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, really for anyone who's like, engaging in anal oral sex, regardless of your
Right.
gender or
Right.
sexual orientation. But yeah, so absolutely. Again, because it may just a blood test alone. So, for like syphilis, for example, and that's the one that, so syphilis, most of the syphilis infections in Philly are among men. And so much of that is among men who have sex with men. So that's
Okay.
really where we see the main sort of the main amount of number of HIV and of syphilis infections are among men, but
Okay.
there are some that are transmitted to women or persons with vaginas.
Yeah.
I gotta get myself
Yeah.
together.
Wait, I'm trying. Okay.
Yes, you helping me get myself together with that. At any rate, so um, oh man, it's
So,
so
well, let me ask you this while you're thinking, what STIs are more common in the African American community or that you've seen?
yeah. Um, So HIV is one of them. So, for example,
Okay.
in 2020, so again, this is going back to this is going to health department statistics that I just looked up. That there are about 222 new infections. This was based on a report released last year from based on 2020. That there were 222 new infections among African Americans, and that was much more than, I can't remember the rates of whites or Hispanics, but we were by far the highest number of new HIV infections.
Mm.
Um, and among that, 75% were men and 25% were women. And so, with these statistics, they just identify however the person identifies on the
Yeah.
data form is how they don't
Understandable.
yeah, as much as with like transgender populations, whatever. So 75% men, 25% women, and the age group that had the highest number of infections was the 25 to 39 age range for HIV.
Mm.
So
What?
syphilis. Go ahead.
Well, I want you to complete your statement, but I want to also allow the opportunity for you to share with us information about the programs in which you are involved, because I'm looking and I know that we are getting close to saying, parting ways, that time that I so hate. But I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to share, like I said, information about the programs in which you're involved so that we can, provide even more information to our family members even long after this conversation.
Definitely. I know we're coming up on our commercial break soon, but I guess I'll share. I'm looking at the time. I'm getting hip, Carol. This is how this all works. So I'll just start with that we do have a few. So again, I'm the director of the Philadelphia Area Sexual Health Initiative, and we have a few adolescent sexual health programs. One of them being a study that we're doing right now called Talking Matters, and this means that the person has to be. It's a behavioral study, and so essentially the study is for African American teens ages 14 to 19 of any gender, of any sexual orientation, and they would have to call to screen, see if they're eligible. And then they would get randomized either into a control condition, which simply is that they would just receive like 3 surveys over the course of time, or the intervention condition, which is the actual program that we've developed that we're testing, because we're testing the effectiveness of this 5-session program that we in Pashi created in-house for
I
African
love
American adolescents, created by African Americans, Tiffany Bacon actually was instrumental in the development of this particular intervention.
Oh, wow.
And when she was,
We love our WURD family.
yes,
I'm going to interrupt you because we are going to run to a commercial break, but I'm going to ask you to repeat that when we come back for our family members who may have just tuned in or just joining us. So family, again, you are tuned in to Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. Stay with us because we'll be right back.
Word on Jobs.
A new year is here, and if you're searching for new career goals or a new job that fits your skill set, visit wordworks.com to view jobs and program opportunities, including Community Relations Coordinator for WHYY, Disability Services Director for NBME, and Policy Director for Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. Visit WordWorks at word.com and find the career opportunity that's right for you. Brought to you by Pico and Livelihood at Word Radio.
What do an aerospace engineer, cancer immunologist, and bat scientist all have in common? We all have cool jobs in STEM fields. Whether it's building robots or learning to code, girls everywhere are finding their passion for science, technology, engineering, and math through positive role models and mentors. So dare to dive in, get connected, and explore. You never know what your future may hold. Learn more about these and even more cool jobs at shecanstem.com.
We're often influenced by what we see or hear on social media. Beware of disinformation campaigns targeting Black communities by using cultural issues to incite divisions, spread false information, and negatively influence public opinions. We're in this together, and together we can stay informed and empowered. Learn more at nbcit.org. This public service announcement is from the National Black Cultural Information Trust.
I'll be here to hear what's on your mind. Take this time to talk and get it right. You know I'll be there all your life. When you need me, I'll be by your side. By your side. And every day is a different day. Everything is in everything. Even when you think things will never ever be the same. Don't be scared of the world, I'll be here to stay. By your side. Even when your heart ain't listening, or your mind takes you a different way, towards a different path. All you gotta do is sit and ask. When you need me, I'll be by your side.
When the adults in a child's life talk early and often about the dangers of underage drinking, the message gets stronger every time.
I'll be by your side.
Talk. They hear you.
Email from school about the incident today.
Scary.
Tell me about it. Did you have any idea that was going on?
None. I mean, you saw Derek at the game last night too. Did you have a clue?
No, but you know, teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do. Kids hear first about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
It can be hard to tell sometimes, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, bullying, violence, anything, you need to tell an adult. Mom or me, a teacher, coach, school counselor, someone you know and trust.
Dad, no kid is gonna tell an adult about that kind of stuff.
I get it, but if we don't know, we can't help. Speaking up about a problem, that's what helping a friend is all about.
Hey family, I'm Carol Riddick.
And I'm Donavan West, and we're the hosts of Love and Life, a new show about,
well, love and life.
This show is an informative, entertaining, and refreshing take on the hard conversations about love and life.
Each day, we'll provide real facts and honest opinions on dating, sexual health, casual, and committed relationships.
These late night conversations will be served on a judgment-free platter and seasoned with unapologetic realness.
So join us Sunday night through Thursday night at midnight on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media.
You're listening to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Hey there, family. Welcome back. And for those of you who are just joining us, you are tuned in to Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. We're at 96.1 FM and 900 AM. Just sending a quick reminder, you can email us at loveandlife@wordradio.com, loveandlife@wurdradio.com. We're talking with Lee Carson, and before the break, Lee gave us some more pertinent information that I'm going to ask him to share, and I'm going to be quiet so that he can do so.
All right. Yeah. So just to reiterate that one of our projects that we have going on right now is the Talking Matter study for African American adolescents ages 14 to 19 of any sexual orientation, any gender. And it's 5 sessions long. And again, it's a study. So that means essentially that we're testing how well this particular intervention works. And the only way that we can do that is if we randomly, every person that enrolls, we randomly assign them either to the control condition, which is just like they get a couple of surveys and they're paid, compensated, like each survey that they take, because we want to respect people's time and effort. And then some people will get assigned to the intervention condition, which they'll go through the 5-session program. And then at the end of the study, we're able to take a look at the people who went through the actual program to see if there was any changes and improvements in their sexual health practices. And so again, parents out there who really want their kids to be, to participate in this, please reach out to us, reach out to me. And I can get you connected, to one of the project staff that can give you additional information about that.
How do we do so? How do we reach out to you? I'm sorry.
So you can reach out to me at L.E. Carson, that's LECARSON @phmc.org. So please reach out to me and I can get additional details to you. Aside from Talking Matters, we have a few other programs. One called Horizons, which is for African American females, anyone who identifies as female, and it's 4 sessions. It's empowerment based. It really helps young women to develop a stronger sense of self. They even get a little self-care package because it really is about and it's also about empowerment. So, and then also provides them information about sexual health, like much of the stuff that I talked about today around HIV, STIs, and how to protect themselves, how to also set boundaries and limits and to say no if they don't feel like they want to have sex. Like all of those things are covered in that particular program. So if you have a young woman who is ages 14 to 19, they could participate in that particular intervention. And then we also have SHARP, which is for adolescents ages like 14 and 21 of any race or ethnic group, any gender. That's also a teen pregnancy prevention program, but we also talk a little bit about alcohol and substance use and the harmful impact that could have on the development of the young person. So that's something else that we have going on in the department. And then we also have our Let's Talk Real Talk program. And so that's where I really encourage adults. And a lot of what we talked about today are things that we cover in Let's Talk Real Talk, which is 3 sessions. We train adults, anyone 20 years of age and older that has adolescents in their lives. We train them on how to be a source of trusted information when it comes to sexual health. So we'll train them on sexual orientation, gender identity. We cover values and what their values are and how do they handle values conflicts between themselves and the young people in their lives. And one thing that we really hit home is that they were once adolescents too. Like sometimes when we're adults, we expect adolescents to do things differently than we did, but we all did stuff that elders in our lives told us we shouldn't do. We snuck around. We did all of those things. We can't expect that's just humanity. That's the natural cycle of life. And so we try to really remind adults that, most of the things that young people do, unless it's something that's hugely detrimental to their well-being, like extreme substance use or other suicidal behaviors, things like that, of course, we need to really address. But most of the stuff, we just need to kind of help equip them with the decision-making skills and hope that they do the best that they can and don't engage in anything that's going to, really be harmful to them. And then we, help them, give them tips on communication and all of that stuff that helps to facilitate, a stronger relationship with young people and open up those doors of communication, not just about sex and sexuality, but about all kinds of things in life. And then, we provide them with some, time to sort of practice those, skills of being able to talk to young people. And, they actually get compensated. So for all of our programs, to participate, we actually compensate people to participate. Wow. So not only do you get the information, but you also get, can I say ducats? Did anybody say ducats? Can we take it back to the 80s? Can we, you know what I'm saying?
Listen, I understand ducats, so I know what a ducat is. I know what ducats are. My goodness.
So lots that we have to offer. So any questions about any of that, please reach out to me again, L.E. Carson at phmc.org. Thank you.
Okay. Do you need to take a breath, because that was so much information that you.
I know, I was trying to get it in before the Sandman come out. I know it's that time, so I'm trying to get it in.
No. No, I love it. I wish. Look at you. Should have seen me. I said, okay, wait. What? Wait. Okay, wait. What?
I know.
Wait.
Yeah, you have to rewind. Once the video's out, y'all, just rewind. Just rewind.
That is what I'm going to encourage all of our family members to do. I also encourage you to contact Lee in the event you have any questions or need additional information. And his email address is lecarson at phmc.org. I wanted to make sure I spelled that for our listeners, for our family members who are listening and cannot see his email address that is plastered on your monitor or your screen or whatever device on which you are looking, watching the show. But thank you just doesn't encompass the gratitude that I feel right now for all that you shared, for everything that you shared. And, I know, family members, I know you have more questions. I have more questions, but you do have Lee's email address. And you can also email us here at loveandlife@wordradio.com if you want to, continue the conversation, or when Lee comes back, because I'm speaking it into existence. Lee is going to come back. Okay. He is coming back. But for now, what I will say is that wraps up today's episode of Love and Life on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. I want to extend my utmost gratitude to you, family, for spending your time with us, your time, your energy, and your attention. Your company and your attention are always welcome. And you know that because I tell you so. Thank you to our entire WURD family, especially to Tiffany Bacon, and to my co-host, my alternating co-host, Donavan West, who sends his love. Always exceptional. Thank you so much, Lee. Thank you to Lee Carson for all that you shared with us. I'm beaming right now, feeling so empowered, and I feel liberated, and I feel better educated. So thank you. Family has yes.
Testament to educators, for people who feel that way on the other end. So
yes. Family, have a great night, a great morning, and a great rest of your day. Remember, we are all in this together. So be good to you, but be good to those around you. Make sure you join us at midnight for another edition of Love and Life on WURD. Be well, y'all.
Tanya Hopkins, aka the Food Griot, the host of Savory and Sweet, a new show about food, history, and culture. Savory and Sweet is a flavorful exploration of food marinated in the Black experience, seared with history and braised culture. Each week, I'll fold in conversations that center food and drink at the intersection of business, health and well-being, entertainment, education, and innovation, while separating the facts from fiction on the sometimes surprising origins of what we eat and drink. So join me, the Food Griot, and special guests for Savory and Sweet, Food, History, and Culture every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. exclusively on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media.
You know, a lot of people say when you're going somewhere, you don't want to look back. But I beg to differ. For her to see her father celebrate his graduation, it's the best feeling in the world. I can't lie and say it was easy. But sometimes you just have to stop everything and take it in. I looked at everything in a different light. I realized it started with me going back and getting my high school diploma.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made her college years happen. Opening that education savings account when she was little. Spearheading a campus tour. And another, and another, and another, and another. Bam! Deciphering financial aid. She was like, what? Now she's like, you aced planning for college. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Oh, hey, Julia. You ready to play band with us? I'm going to play my clarinet.
And Elma's going to play his drum. Drum loud.
Oh, well, you know what to do, Julia.
Julia knows.
With Julia's autism, loud sounds can be too much.
But she still loves to make music. Play band.
Early screening for autism can make a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.
I remember this one moment. I ran to kind of the water edge, and my mom said something along the lines of like, now it's your turn. Take that first step. When I became a mom myself, I feel like my whole world changed. There's some light within her that makes me continue to do the climate science work that I do. You don't have to be a climate scientist to want to protect the earth. As moms, we care about our children and the environment they grow up in. And for Mia, I want you to know that I worked really hard to be a part of the change and to make it a better place for you.
Imagine you on a deserted island all by yourself, or even being in a crowd of people yet still feeling alone. That's what being a victim of sexual assault can feel like. Victims of sexual assault are at an increased risk for developing depression, PTSD, substance abuse, eating disorders, and anxiety. Sexual assault can happen to anyone and is any unwanted sexual contact such as unwanted touching, fondling, groping, or even rape. No always means no, so speak up and speak out. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.